wrong job. Better check the classified ads.
Headquarters. We've got an emergency here. Ralph, the Idaho slasher, is fleeing towards the suburbs. The target vehicle is a white British sports car. Over.
Gotcha, Nancy. Let's go, Mr. Driver!
After Sega set the bar for all other racing games to follow with their release of Outrun, arcade developers all raced, no pun intended, to get their own racing game out into arcades. This pursuit of top games was very common in those days of video games. It wasn't unusual to see loads of clones of the same game if that game was a huge success. Taito were the first to release their Outrun clone. Full Throttle, or Top Speed as it was known in some regions, was a game that very closely copied Outrun. It even had the player control a red sports car from the time. But Full Throttle was not what you would call a good game, not in my opinion anyway, and it would seem many of the top brass at Taito thought along the same lines. But Full Throttle wasn't a total loss. It did have some pretty decent graphics, good sound, and allowed the player to use a turbo boost, that extra zip of speed. But what the game lacked was some excitement. So how do you make a bland racing game exciting? Simple. Make it a cops and robbers style game. Enter Chase HQ. A game which sees a player take control of a Porsche, which it so obviously is, and then race to catch up with a criminal and then ram that criminal off the road. On paper, it doesn't sound like much. In reality, and in the arcades, this was a really neat addition to the racing game genre.
Okay. You're under arrest on suspicion of first-degree murder.
This is Nancy at State's headquarters. We've got an emergency here. Carlos, the New York armed robber, has been spotted in a yellow sports car on the freeway. Over.
Gotcha, Nancy.
Chase HQ has some very impressively smooth scrolling for its time. Definitely on a par with Sega's Outrun. And when you engage the turbo, the sense of speed is crazy fast. Everything just seems to fly past you in the blink of an eye, with other cars and roadside objects just becoming some speed-induced blur. The main car and the villain cars look superb, very close to the cars they were based on, and the civilian cars range from the humble pickup truck to the family hatchback. The backgrounds are pretty good as well, with lots of clouds in the sky breaking up the graduation of the blue sky, and with high cliffs and skyscrapers on some levels, adding a level of detail not often seen in racing game backgrounds before. Once you ram the criminal off the road, you get this nice little screen showing them surrendering or getting the bracelet slapped on them, with large, detailed characters, and a good chance to eye up the Porsche as well, which again, I have to say, just looks brilliant in this game.
Okay. You're under arrest on suspicion of armed robbery and murder.
This is Nancy at State's headquarters. We've got an emergency here. A gang of Chicago pushers are fleeing towards the suburbs. The target vehicle is a German sports car. Over.
Gotcha, Nancy. ya, boy.
The sound is pretty good as well. The engine has this annoying hum to it, but that was pretty much standard fare in racing games of the 80s. But the sounds of the tyre screeches, the bumping into other cars, the sound of the turbo, all of them just sound absolutely brilliant. And with a heavy amount of speech to accompany the action, you do get a good sense of atmosphere in this game. There is this really neat effect when you enter the tunnel, when the sounds of the engine and all the other effects get amplified and echoed slightly, to give the impression of an enclosed space. It's just awesome. The music is very muted. In fact, it's so quiet, it's really hard to hear it at times. But the tune isn't the best, so it's probably a good thing you can't really hear it. When playing Chase HQ, you get this satisfying feeling that actually bumping into cars doesn't really ruin your race, as it's part of the game. And the game is so damn enjoyable to play. And it's weird that the addition of simply ramming a criminal off the road could bring so much enjoyment to a driving game, but it does. And then some. The game can be quite challenging. The roads or tracks are not the widest, and it's difficult to stay between the lines at times. And when catching up with the criminal cars, other cars do tend to get in the way. Honestly, this was one of the best games I have ever played from around that period. It didn't overtake Outrun or anything like that, but it was for sure a game that I was definitely wanting to get on a home format, should it ever come out.
Oh man!
Nancy, State Headquarters. The target vehicle should be in sight at any second. Over.
Will you read loud and clear? Over. Nancy, we got the suspect in our sight. Over. Okay, we got him found. More! Push it more! Please! Oh man! They're down! More! Push it more! Oh man! They're down! More! Please! Oh man! One. Okay. You're under arrest on suspicion of kidnapping.
Ocean Software snapped up the rights to the home ports across multiple formats, and rather unsurprisingly, they made a real mess of the Commodore 64 version. This, believe it or not, is Chase HQ on a Commodore 64. A real sad effort of a game, because so much was missing, like the speed and the excitement. The game moves at this really pathetically slow pace, that it seems like you are driving with the handbrake on, with the roadside objects moving at a really choppy pace. In fact, it's so choppy, it's almost vomit-inducing. It must be about 2 frames a second or something. drab, monotone colours for the road and backgrounds. It looks almost like a ZX Spectrum version of the game. The Porsche looks like a dark blob of turd with lights on it. The enemy cars look like blobs of blue tack covered in Tipex. The whole thing is just ghastly to look at. The sound is awful. It's almost like a sort of punishment of sorts. This constant high-pitched tone is really vomit-inducing as well, with a really awful skid effect and horrendous turbo sound, which sounds more like a kitchen sink filling up than a forced induction unit. The gameplay is rubbish. In fact, it's worse than rubbish. It's crap. And to think Ocean were charging nearly £10 for this? They should have been locked up. For those that are a lot younger, this is what growing up playing video games at home was truly like. It was like Forrest Gump and his chocolates. You never knew what you were going to get. But I can tell you, in most cases, if it was an arcade port, it was going to be a steaming pile of turd. I already had a Master System at this point, and was disappointed that it had not been ported to that. But not long after this turkey got released, Taito done a deal with Sega, and they started to release older games on the humble Master System, and Chase HQ was one of them. By the time this got released, I already had my Mega Drive, but a good buddy of mine was still buying games for his Master System, and he bought Chase HQ. Now, it looks nothing like Chase HQ, and sounds nothing like Chase HQ, but this version of Chase HQ was probably the best home port I ever played of the game. The Master System was a trier. It couldn't really handle many of the 16-bit arcade machines, but it did try. And let's be honest, the home micros in the UK like the Amiga and Atari ST all had poor ports of this game, but this port had some endearing quality about it. It didn't try and win the gamer over with a fancy intro, or even to recreate the feel of the arcade, but it was still a fun game to play on the Master System. I always had a blast playing this on Sega's little 8-bit machine. And I must apologise for the footage here. I was playing this in emulation, and there was a problem with the screen breaking up all the time. This does not happen on the real thing, trust me. This port of JCHQ is more like a handheld version of the game. There are loads and loads of things missing. Everything that was missing was not important to make the game great, but the fact it moves at a decent pace makes it a pretty decent racing game. And then the ramming the criminal off the road still seems so oddly satisfying that this is JCHQ at its very core. You can even customise settings of your car between levels, which was a nice little way for making up for its many omissions. But overall, this version is actually fantastic. It's way better than any of the home micros I played at the time, I'm telling you. JCHQ in the arcade is still a great game, and it's a game that offers something a little different from other racing games of the time, and it is definitely worth a go if you have the ability to do so. And that was my look back at JCHQ. If you liked this video, then please do give me a sub and a thumbs up, or maybe even a comment or two below about your memories of JCHQ. And a big thank you to all of those who have subscribed and or commented. It really does mean a lot, and I do appreciate all of you, so thank you. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.